Hey folks, Dave the Not So Evil Viking 13 here with a look at the upcoming Battlefield 1 DLC, Turning Tides, which features a number of amphibious operations, and as you can see from the title, the part that I am most excited about is most definitely the return of real naval combat to the Battlefield series. While Battlefield 1 has featured some very large dreadnought battleships since launch, they're just the behemoths that enter a game once one team is down too many points. Sure, they're player controllable, but you have no control over how they enter the match. Here in the Turning Tides DLC, there will be naval vehicles that actually spawn in like a normal vehicle, a tank or a plane, in a normal match. Kind of like the previous DLC, In the Name of the Tsar, Turning Tides is going to be released in a couple of different chunks. The first part of the DLC is going to come out on December 11th, featuring two new maps, Cape Helles and Achibaba. While the entire DLC has an amphibious and naval theme, these first two maps are going to focus on the British invasion of Gallipoli and the attempt to take the fight directly to the Ottoman Empire in World War I. Later in January, we're going to get the second two maps from this DLC along with the rest of the additional content as the fight heads to the North Sea with some much larger and more naval-focused maps, including an entire naval battle at Heligoland Bite, and an attempt for the British to seal up a Belgian port at Zeebrugge. Complementing the four new maps, you have your usual selection of additional game modes, vehicles, and weapons. Before we talk about all of that though, I want to focus in on the new LClass Destroyer available in this DLC. This is the first fully controllable, full-sized naval unit available in a Battlefield game since the original Battlefield 1942. That's right, it's been over 16 years. Sure, we've seen naval units in previous Battlefield games. You had some naval Battlefield 3 single-player missions where you were a fighter pilot in the Navy. There was also even a full naval Battlefield 4 DLC, but really all that meant was that each team had an aircraft carrier that was your starting base, and there were a lot of little gunboats running around. Sure, the LClass Destroyer here in Battlefield 1 and the Turning Tides DLC is a small destroyer, but it's still our first full-size naval vehicle since Battlefield 1942. It has four vehicle positions that can be shared among teammates. You have the captain, who also controls the front turret, a secondary turret, and a number of AA positions on it as well. Gunners in the AA positions, if there are no turrets in the air, can then switch to a torpedo launcher and actually launch long-range torpedoes off the side of the destroyer to help keep the enemy torpedo boats from being able to flank too easily. It also comes with two vehicle packages, a mine layer package and the default torpedo boat destroyer package. Now guys, the reason that I'm so excited about this is because I've always thought that the modern Battlefield games are a great platform for some full naval combat. Even in its limited form, this LClass Destroyer makes a fantastic addition to the map that I've tried it on so far from Turning Tides, Cape Helles. This is the British invasion of the Gallipoli Peninsula during World War I, an attempt to make a foothold on the Ottoman Empire's coastal fortifications. The Ottomans do not have a destroyer of their own on this map, however, they do get a number of the torpedo boat spawns as vehicle options, and it's surprisingly fun to play as both sides in a game of cat and mouse. Sure, the LClass Destroyer's got those four positions and their guns to defend, along with the torpedo launchers and the AA guns, but the torpedo boats are fast and very, very small. If a swarm of them goes out to sea and launches torpedoes at long range against your destroyer, you're going to spend most of your time dodging and weaving and trying to take out those small harassing torpedo boats and not supporting your team trying to take the fortifications on the shore. However, if your team is coordinated and your destroyer crew is working as a good team, and perhaps you've got some of your own torpedo boats to guard you and some aircraft to watch over you, you can do a lot of fantastic ground support and get those conquest assault points captured on the shore. I've already spent a couple of hours focusing on the destroyer, or supporting the destroyer, playing as the British on Cape Helles, and I can say that it is just as much fun as I was hoping. Putting the somewhat one-sided fight of the British naval forces versus the Ottomans aside for a moment, coming in January, especially the map Heligoland Bite has a much greater chance, in my opinion, of giving us some full-on naval combat. The description that we have right now describes it as the Great War at Sea, Engage in an epic naval clash as the British Empire Royal Marines and German Navy pit dreadnoughts, destroyers, and aircraft against each other while infantry troops fight by the iconic red cliffs of Rocky Cove. From what I can tell, it looks like both the British and the Germans on this map are going to get at least those LClass Destroyer spawns, along with the usual dreadnoughts that can come in to change the course of battle. Much like the new player controllable destroyer is a mini version of the full-on dreadnought behemoth, there is also an airship being added in this DLC that is also player spawnable and controllable. That airship is going to be called the C-Class airship, and as you might expect for a naval-focused DLC, this was C-Class in its name because that stood for Coastal Class, and it was used specifically to defend naval convoys, perform anti-submarine actions, and patrol coastlines. The C-Class airship is going to have one pilot and up to 3 gunners, and I think it's going to feature particularly on that Heligoland Bite map. Altogether, with dreadnoughts, destroyers, and controllable airships along with the usual aircraft and infantry fighting on the shore, that Heligoland Bite map promises to be an absolute madhouse of vehicle and naval action, and I for one cannot wait to get my hands on it. The descriptions of both of the maps that are releasing in January, both Heligoland Bite and Zeebrugge, are implying some very full-scale battles, using all of the available naval forces, dreadnoughts, aircraft, and those new C-Class blimps to make, again, an all-out fight. And that is exactly what I've been hoping for the last couple of battlefields. Ideally, I would love to see that taken to the next level, and bring back submarines and perhaps controllable aircraft carriers, not World War I, obviously, but looking forward into additional Battlefield content outside of Battlefield 1, I really hope that this is the start of additional naval forces being added to these modern Battlefield games. I think the games are a great platform for it, and I think that outside of how enthusiastic I am, I think the community is really excited about these destroyers and new vehicles, and we do want to see, as a community, more of that in future Battlefield titles. DICE, please take note. Let us have control of these naval forces. We loved it in Battlefield 1942, and again, I'd love to see more of it in the future. Alright guys, I'll get off my soapbox there, and I'll set the naval forces aside for just a minute to talk about the additional things that this DLC is going to add, as some additional footage from the community test program rolls there in the background. This footage is taken from the test versions of Cape Hells as well as Achibaba. There's going to be a new elite class, the Infiltrator, which has the ability to place a spotlight which acts as a spawn point for your team. You can also call in indirect artillery fire, you get a permanent sprint boost, and you get a grenade launcher. This, from what I've heard, is one of the most powerful of all of the elite classes, although, as you might expect, given that it's so powerful, it's also very popular, and I haven't been able to get my hands on it just yet. Along with the new specific British faction, the Royal Marines, that are going to be added to this DLC, there are a handful of new weapons as well. Now, the new weapons aren't British focused because a British faction was already in the game, along with all of their primary weapons, so DICE is taking the opportunity, it seems like, to add in a few unique outlier weapons. We have some very interesting pistol conversions with the M1917 Trench Carbine, the machine pistol model of 1912, and then a couple of heavier weapons as well, including the M1917 machine gun, an American machine gun, as well as the classic Carcano M91 carbine rifle, and the Type 38 Arasaka rifles for the Scout class. There's also a few new melee weapons, including the Naval Cutlass, and unfortunately the grappling hook. And I say unfortunately because people spotted that grappling hook on early promotional art for this DLC, and there was a brief hope that we were going to get some kind of cool grappling hook climbing gadget, but it's just a melee weapon, if a cool one. If you guys have been around for a while, you'll know that I am a long-time Battlefield fan, and that I have been definitely enjoying my journey through Battlefield 1. I think that DICE has the DLC schedule rolling along much more smoothly at this point, and all of the new content is fantastic. I like the slight risk they're taking with the introduction of, say, the different Russian factions in the name of the Tsar DLC, where you had a couple of the maps that were actually based around the Russian Revolution, and now you've got this return to some naval combat here in this DLC. I like where they're going with this, and I've definitely enjoyed the content that I've played so far for Turning Tides on the CTE program. I'm looking forward to the official launch on the 11th, and then later on in January. If there's something from Turning Tide that you guys would like to see more of, let me know, and I'll see if I can dig into it. For now, that's going to be it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time.